Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. Today we're going to go through a foot tutorial. Basically the foundation of our yoga practice is in our feet and how we're standing and how we're stabilizing ourselves. So today we're just going to give them a little bit of love and kind of go from there. So to start, I like to sort of warm up the back chain of my body. And what I'm going to do to begin with is take my mat and roll it up. I use a fairly thick mat, so I only roll it to about halfway. But basically what I'm looking for is enough height that when I step on it, I get a nice stretch through the back line, the back chain of my body. So I'm going to step onto that with both of my feet. I should be able to get my heels on the floor. The position of the foot will be different for every person. If you have a really thin yoga mat, you might roll it up the whole way and it might not still be enough, so you might want to grab a towel and roll it up. For some people, rolling up your mat even just a little bit of the way and then dorsiflexing the foot, that might be enough of a stretch for you. It just depends on how much mobility there is within the ankle joint right now, and then how stretched out the back of your calves and your legs are already. So I'm just gonna hang out here with my toes and the balls of my foot up on the mat and my heels down below. I want everybody to go ahead and close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you. And I want you to notice the sensations leg to leg. Do you notice that one maybe feels different than the other? Maybe you don't notice anything at all, and that's okay. Hopefully you are feeling a stretch somewhere, but we're just going to begin to breathe into the sensation of the stretch. Just allowing our bodies to relax into the space. Start to bring awareness towards your breath and see if you can increase the length of time it takes you to exhale. Breathing in deeply, allowing the belly to relax on those inhales. Tells your body that everything's okay and allows your body to relax into the stretch a little bit more. This should not be painful. It might be uncomfortable, but as in all my yoga classes, your body is your teacher. I just give suggestions. So if anything ever becomes painful, please back out of it, take maybe a lesser stance within it, or opt not to do that one. Breathing here. Hopefully if you were feeling a really strong sensation in the beginning, maybe that started to back off. Now I want you to begin to notice if you shift your weight back and forward, how that changes the stretch. And notice how you can deepen it by shifting your pelvis, by shifting your weight forward, lengthening through the back of the legs a little bit more. And then maybe see if you can shift it right to left, or even externally rotating through the feet and internally rotating. So either in supination with the feet, you can see as I pivot and my arches kind of come up as my feet come away from one another, and then as I internally rotate as the feet go towards one another in pronation, how that feels along the back of my ankles and my calves in the stretch. Noticing the sensations in your own bodies. And then go ahead and step back. You can roll out your yoga mat, maybe shake out the feet, noticing how they feel. We're going to counter that stretch. This is going to be uncomfortable for some people, but we're going to roll through the toes here, and then taking the foot into an opposite direction. Maybe straightening through the leg, maybe just holding it here, depending on your body. Again, going to a place where you're feeling sensation and stretching along the front side of the leg and the foot, but no pain. Breathing here, backing off if it gets too much, maybe increasing if you're not feeling enough sensation. You'll know where to go based on your body's feedback. Go ahead and release, shaking it out, opposite side, rolling into those toes, stretching out through that foot. Maybe noticing one side is feeling more bendy than the other. Not that it's worse or better, usually has to do with patterning in our bodies, how we move our feet, what we do with our body throughout the day. Breathing here. And then go ahead and relax, shaking it out. We're going to go ahead and open up through the toes. So for this next exercise, we're going to take our hands and we're going to place our fingers in between each of the toes. So I'm going to try to face this way so you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to place my fingers through each of the toes. If you've never done this before, you might get your fingertips through. If you're used to doing this and you're used to practicing yoga, you might be able to get your whole hand through like me. If you can't even get your fingertips in between the toe areas, that's just fine. That's quite normal. We basically box our feet into casts all day long, into shoes, and they stay that way. Especially if you're a woman who wears those pointy toes, maybe stiletto type shoes, the toes aren't going to want to move. They've been in one position for a really long time. So an alternate to having your hand come through here is to go to a drugstore and purchase those little toe separators that they use for pedicures. They're often made of foam and they'll be a little bit more forgiving than fingers. But hopefully all of you at home have been able to find at least a little bit of separation between each of the toes. And then what we're going to do in this separation with each of the toes is I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to grab down and I'm going to squeeze tightly. And then hopefully everybody at home, even if you've just got the fingertips between your toes, you're going to notice how that sensation is starting to spread the toes away from one another and open up through the tissues of the foot. Breathing here. And then release. I know it feels weird if you've not done this before. Now I'm going to take my toes and I'm going to curl my toes to hug my hand. So I'm going to squeeze through my toes and I'm going to squeeze into the hand. So by squeezing the hand into the foot, we're doing a passive stretch, but now I'm activating the muscles in my feet. So the muscles and the tissues are being stretched and strengthened at the same time. It's an active stretch. Moves the tissues in our body a little bit differently, and then also gives better feedback for muscle memory. Tries to open up through the feet. Feet are amazing. It's amazing that we can balance on them and we can walk and run the way that we do. So it's nice to be able to give them back a little bit of love. If you're like this, just when I was demonstrating, I had my foot up, but you don't have to have it up. If you're finding that reaching your foot is hard here, you can put it on a block or on a bolster or a pillow. But I'm going to continue to squeeze my fingers with those toes a little bit longer. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Think of it as like sit-ups for your toes. Just one long, really strong sit-up. Go ahead and release. And then now I'm going to start to roll my ankle. So you can hold your leg however's comfortable for you. If it's not comfortable to hold it up, you can prop it with a block or a pillow. But I'm just going to begin to roll my ankle. So I'm using my left wrist to just maneuver my foot in all the different positions that the ankle will allow me to do. I'm going to go the opposite way. And then notice if there's any areas, I know for me there's areas that feel crunchy, that don't want to move smoothly like the others. See if within the next couple of rotations, if you can get those to kind of even out. Try to relax through this foot. The movement comes only from the hand and the arm. It's a passive range of motion, not an active range of motion. And in the meantime, I've sneakily still got those fingers between your toes, so you're still getting stretching movement there. Go ahead and relax and release, maybe shake it out. And now I want you to compare how that foot that we just worked on feels compared to the other one. Notice the sensations in your body, and then try to spread your toes out and take a look at them and notice if one side is different than the other. Hopefully you're noticing big changes here. We're gonna move onto the opposite side, and I'm gonna spin the opposite way so that hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing here. So again, fingertips or whole fingers through. You might notice, like me, that one side was easier than the other. That's totally normal, to be expected. Placing your foot wherever's comfortable, maybe on the floor, maybe elevated with something. I'm gonna start to squeeze with my hand and noticing how that sensation feels on the foot. Breathing here into the stretch. Again, not going to a place of pain, going to a place where you feel sensation, where you feel tissues being challenged and moved, but not so much that it's causing pain and injury in your body. Your body gives you feedback for a reason. Please listen to it. Noticing how that feels here. And then releasing with my hand, I'm going to squeeze and I'm going to curl my toes over my fingers. And I'm going to try to grasp quite strongly. This is something that we don't do very much of in our life. If you ever have a towel on the floor or maybe a sock, see if you can grab it with your toes and pick it up. We have dexterity in our toes to do very similar movements as our fingers. The musculature is very similar, but we lose that ability because we don't use it. So it's really great for your body, especially as our bodies age, and they all will. It doesn't matter how old you are, you're only going to get older. So in order to maintain balance and stability as we age, it's a really good idea to maintain stability and mobility within our foundation, within our feet. Are you still squeezing? I know, the minute I start talking and you start thinking about other things, they forget. Your toes are probably getting tired, maybe shaking, because this isn't something that you normally do. Extra long sit up for your toes. Squeeze, 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 and relax. Don't pull your hand out yet. We're gonna come into the ankle rolls. I like to prop my foot up on something just because it's less work for me to try to do. And I'm gonna start to roll through my ankle in one direction. Again, noticing if there's like areas that are crunchy or don't wanna move so much, seeing if you can get things to relax a little bit there. We're gonna go for some rolls in the opposite direction. And then if you can think back to that first ankle that you did, is one more mobile than the other? Do you have a better range of motion in one? And then go ahead and release. Release those fingers, wiggle those toes, see how that feels.